two carvings. I got a lot of good pictures that can be stone base, right?
You got a smart one. Yeah. And Jason.
Y'all already, did you get my text? Yeah. This is for the,
Right.
you know that I'm hungry.
Good. How you doing? Good.
We ate a little.
Amanda Livingston, I don't know if we've met. I'm not.
Hey, why don't y'all go sit down, I'll get you some peanut butter. Sit down.
Yeah, I've been to market manager.
Cecile. Thank you.
So welcome to the May 1st, May Day Council meeting. And I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Ms. Patterson?
Here.
Mr. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Humphries?
Here.
And Mayor Lo.
Here. So the first thing I'd like to do is ask permission to deviate from the agenda just a little bit. And we have so much business to take care of that we need to set a separate meeting, and we need to choose which agenda items we're gonna put on the May. We had suggested a May 15th meeting. I think I sent everybody a suggested time of May 15th at 12.
You sent it today?
Several days ago.
I think it was the day the tractor went out from
Wednesday. Anyway, we have so many items on this agenda tonight that we're not gonna be able to get through it. So, what I'd like to do first is ask if the council would agree to another meeting on May 15th at 12 o'clock. Is everybody available? It's the-
Monday's the 15th.
Monday the 15th.
Yes, at 12 o'clock. Is that okay with
Fine
everybody?
that.
I'm fine.
I'm good.
Bob, are you okay?
I'll have to find out, I'll work it out.
Is that okay with staff?
John, our consultants said it's good
They
for
said they're
them.
good to go.
Okay.
15th at noon.
Okay, so, now we need to scroll through this agenda a little bit and see which things we're not gonna talk about tonight to put on the agenda. So I'm
Mayor,
just,
I've got one, item number 2, which okay with me if you put that off until the next meeting.
That, I was gonna suggest that, Wayne, because that, our consultants, part of their scope is to come and do a presentation, and so John has lined them up to do that.
Good.
okay, so does the rest of these, the number 3 and 4, and 5, do they go with that, Mr. Kelly?
I think it would probably be, something that we could do all together, because they all relate to the same project. Would that be your?
What was the second one? I was emailing that report.
Our discussion update on construction inspection contract with AMT. And then, the council, that resolution is on the actual agenda tonight, number 4.
Okay, so number 4 will stay.
Yeah, they did, VDOT was requesting that resolution as soon as possible.
Okay, so the resolution number 4 will stay. So far we have C2, C3, C5.
The construction inspection contract, I guess it's just a reference. We have the proposal, I think, is in the packet. Could be discussed if you all wish to do so. Timing wise, I don't know that 2 weeks would make a difference in a negative way. I think we could discuss it at the May 15th meeting and still be fine as far as time to get the contract settled.
Okay. C7, update on new rules related to dogs at farmers market. Mr. Humphries, you all right to move that? Or do you
I am.
keep it? Okay, so C7. I don't think there's a discussion about traffic issues. That's something that we're gonna have to have a meeting with the property owners and report back, right?
Yes, and we're in the process of lining that meeting up, and
So that's not anything else to move or talk about, really?
No.
Okay. Partnership, we can, I actually think we can take D2 off the agenda completely because there are no more updates. We have not attended any more meetings with Appalachian Power, and I think they're kind of negotiating now with the airport, so that can be removed completely.
D1 will take maybe 30 seconds.
Okay. Tourism advisory, you say you sent those back to tourism.
The bylaws for tourism advisory committee.
Oh,
Gone back to
So they're not
yeah.
going back until tomorrow anyway, right? Right. Okay. So we'll kinda, we'll put those on the,
I thought you were looking past me.
yeah. So we'll put D three on the 15th, and that's probably really. Is there anything else on here that you all see you think we need to move?
I just see 3 items that there's nothing to report on, they're just on there to hang on.
Okay. Okay, so let's stick with that. So we're gonna move C2, C3, C5, C7, and D3. To the May 15th meeting. Is that okay with council?
That
Does
is okay with
anybody have
me.
objection?
It's fine with me.
Fine with me.
Okay. Okay, very good. Now let's, move forward. And the first item on the agenda is the update on the Park Street project and VDOT revenue sharing funds. Rick Humphries, councilman.
I don't really have an update. I would defer to Greg and to John Dew. But a member, there are a group of Park Street, interested Park Street parties, excuse me, headed by, in this case, Dirk is going to be their spokesman back here, Dirk Moore, and also Kathy Shear, and several other stakeholders in that area about the Park Street, and I think wanting to urge us to try to see what we can do. Was the VDOT enhancement grants gave us $355,100, which would be matched by the town in some fashion. And that was, excuse me, to have upgrade on sidewalks, lighting, and other infrastructure such as underground lighting, or, you know, if that was a possibility within the scope of how much money is available, which would make it a $710,200 project. One thing is, talking to other council members, we realized that we did not want to, grants are so hard to come by, we did not want to lose the $355,100, which somebody's giving you $1 for every dollar that you put in. It's a pretty good deal. Because of that, this group has really banded together and is looking forward to being part of the discourse of trying to get this, to obtain this, maintain this, I should say. We already obtained it, maintain it, and look at how we can progress. So, other than that's all that I have, really, that I know. I would defer to anybody if anybody else would like to speak or whatever from the Park Street group. One person, if the council would agree to it, one person could speak, and probably for about 3 to 5 minutes, something like that. Would that be okay?
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Well, Rick stated it pretty well in terms of the outline of the objective, but we feel that it's a great project to begin the enhancement of that area as a real center for the artisan culture of Abingdon, to tie in nicely with what's happening throughout Southwest Virginia, to build an economy that is based on the creative economy. And we feel that this is one thing that we can do in Abington to not only partner with that in a way that is successful in attracting tourists and other types of economic development in the community, but then it spills out into all the other many businesses in our Main Street area. So when we talk about Park Street, when we talk about the Artisan Center, we're not defining it in any way geographically. We're just saying this is a region where there is that kind of energy, thanks largely to the Holston Artisan Center, and that's something that we can expand upon very successfully, beginning with this project. So I think there's a lot of passion from the people within that area that is pushing this, but I think it grows as people and business people beyond that area understand what we're doing, and I think it starts to multiply then.
Council, do you have any questions?
I had actually, I need to read, I really need to read that, my statement. There's a statement that actually, I'll read that.
I thought that's what we have.
Oh,
That is
okay.
it.
Huh?
That's it. Right here, it's number 2. Second bullet point.
Yeah, but there was a statement actually that we read, the statement that was other than that. Are you looking on page 2 or just the top one?
No, if you have a personal interest in a transaction, you can read bullet point number 2.
Okay, well, but it says, if I read, if a transaction applies to a group of 3 or more, and council member or employee is a member of that group, he or she may participate upon certifying that he or she is not, is able to participate in the transaction fairly, objectively, and in the public interest, section 2.2-3112A2, comma 3115H. And that's basically saying that I have property down there also. This project runs from the Blue Hills Market and goes down towards where the microbrewery is. And it's really interesting, I don't know how much it will be. I was talking to an engineer asking to see how far it would run. And he told me if it went through, it would run $710,000 worth. So I don't know if that's gonna be, the whole way or, but I don't know if it would encompass my property or not, but I'm saying it's just in case. And there's a group of 3 or more that are interested in this, so I can fairly make an objective statement and vote on this if I think I can, or if it's necessary for me to.
Can I add one comment? It's just based on the Creeper Trail Festival, which just happened on Saturday. I went in the afternoon to the co-op to Folsom at Narson's to see how things were going. And there were cars and trucks parked up and down Park Street, both sides. And because there was no sidewalk, people were walking right down the middle of the street, and traffic was coming. So the sidewalks really are a safety issue. That really concerns us. Children running back and forth, having a great time. But yeah, there are very few sidewalks present there.
Mayor, I think that, I don't know how we come up with the money, but I think it would be a mistake if we've got a grant for $355,000 for whatever infrastructure that we need. Somebody must have thought we needed it to put the application in, and I'll accept their judgment on that. And so I'm in support of, if we can figure out how to get the matching money, I'm in support of that. And, hopefully we can get out an RFP and fire an engineer, get them.
Let's talk to Mr. Dew and Mr. Kelly to give us some histories, because I'm not, like Mr. Craig, I'm not a traffic engineer.
That's exactly what I like to do, is just offer a little history about this money and about what type of grants or funds these are. It's VDOT's revenue sharing program, and it is a 50-50 split, like Councilman Humphries mentioned. And I actually put in the application for the project several years ago and did a cost estimate. At that time, it was primarily, it was actually worded as a pedestrian improvement project, and for context or for comparison, what I had in mind was something similar to what we did on Walden Road when we put in the sidewalk there roughly 6, 7, 8 years ago. And then what we did more recently on Oak Hill Street and White's Mill and Court Street. That's the primary objective, is to get a safer walkway for pedestrians in the area. But inevitably, in an area like that's already developed, you start putting sidewalks in, you're also gonna have to start dealing with utilities and certainly storm drainage. And there are some places on Park Street where we could also use the improvements on storm drainage as well. So, having said that, I think it's also been mentioned, lighting, landscaping, all those sort of things, similar to what we did on Academy Drive. Those things are eligible to be used and reimbursed with those revenue sharing funds if we can include those. I will say my initial cost estimate was a little more basic than that, but it's something that certainly, if the town decided to go forward with the project, designer could look into what possibilities could exist with that upper limit in mind. Additionally, if there are funds remaining in any other revenue sharing projects we have that are still current, that money can often be transferred into another project. So that's a possibility as well. But just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to speed to how this thing's evolved and where it is now. But if there's any questions?
John, is there any right of way involved, or can we do it on the existing right of way?
I think I put some money into the right of way on the estimate, but not much, because there's a pretty good right of way through there. As a lot of, or I'm sure everybody's noticed, but you may feel like there's a lot of pavement out there on sections of it, a really wide pavement. So part of the thinking in there would be, do we need all that pavement for on-street parking? Or can we squeeze down on some of the pavement and replace it with sidewalk, or utilize the right-of-way, the existing right-of-way in a different way?
So you're not talking about, because I'm not clear about this, you're not
Okay.
talking about tearing out the sidewalk that's currently there, you're talking about extending it up to the brewery.
My thought would be the sidewalk that's there right now, with the exception of what was replaced at Ms. Woolwine's property there fairly recently, the existing sidewalk's in pretty poor shape. So my thought was replace what's out there now and extend it for the full length of Park Street from Pecan over to Tanner. And now we've got the project, the upcoming project that's gonna be constructed this summer, the Urban Trail, that's gonna tie in at Court and Park and do some improvements there already. So that could, mesh with this effort pretty well if it's a possibility from a budgeting standpoint.
Did you look at it on that side of the road where there already are sidewalks, or did you look at it from the other side of the road?
My thought was to go on the same side as it is now, but again, once you start getting survey information and taking a look at what storm drain issues you have, sometimes that can flip-flop. I know we swapped sides a few times on Court Street and White's Mill before we finally decided to put it where we did, so.
Mr. Kelly, do you have anything?
I'd just like to say, relative to the money issue, of course, in the proposed budget that you have before you, there is no money in that budget earmarked for this project. But that being said, as we move through the upcoming fiscal year, we've got borrowed funds, and within those borrowed funds, we designated that some of those funds could eventually be used for upgrading historic areas, historic properties, and what have you. So if the existing project were to come in under what we've got in this year's budget, the council at that point in time could do a budget amendment, because you're talking $350,000, you're talking having to have a public hearing and a budget amendment later on down the road. And, we'll twist John's arm, I'll say this, we'll twist his arm as long as we can to keep those funds there, especially since John's gonna be willing to work for VDOT. But that would be my thing of how you would possibly look to pay for it if you saw that those funds were getting ready to go away.
In looking at that,
So that $350,000 is kind of about 2.5% of the budget, and that.
The total project is would be 710, and you'd have to budget for the entire $710,000 in expenditures, even though you're getting 355 of those from VDOT.
So it's more than the.
It's more.
We couldn't do it without
Yeah,
changing.
either way, you would do a public hearing.
If it exceeds 1% of the budget, it has to have a public hearing.
And you have to spend the money before you can apply for
Before you apply for
reimbursement.
it,
It's not-
one of the things is looking at this is that in the money that might be available to us, it's money that could be, instead of it coming out of historic properties totally, then we look at trying to refill those coffers, spread it over 3 or 4 years and pay that money back, our $355,000. Even to the point that that would be an option. So I think there's some creative ways that can be used to do that. In looking at this, one of the things that we really looked at, and I say we because I was in on one of the meetings with Park Street, with all the Park Streeters, was that, as the town is looking forward in the future for revenue streams and places where we're going to we can get money so that we can keep, up our services and not have to impact the citizens very much. And that is developing, part of that would be developing that area so that we can get it for revenue sharing. And to have the infrastructure in there so that you could have mixed business and residential, but you is kind of right now is the best of both worlds and what the kind of the, I know in looking at, with Mike Chandler, one of the things that he was really in smaller towns looking to do that mixed business and residential, and gives you a very positive effect as far as communities, locales, and streets.
Okay, so I think what I hear is that you'd like for Mr. Kelly and Mr. Dew to look at, A, whether there's revenue sharing funds on other projects that were left over, and explore the options and report back to us. Is that what I hear?
I would say yes.
Yeah, but that's gonna be pretty far down the line to be able to make that determination, because those revenue sharing funds right now predominantly are earmarked for the Green Springs Road project.
Okay, but this is a totally different project.
Right.
Right.
Right. So if there's any money left over there, then we could look about transferring them over. And John and I'll talk and look and see if there are other projects that we might have some left over.
Are both those enhancement grants, are both of those, you know, the new road and the other, are those both?
Revenue
the
sharing.
Revenue sharing, are they both revenue sharing funds? So if we borrow, I mean, is it possible to borrow revenue sharing funds out of that and with
You can't pay
replenishment?
you can't pay the match for one set of revenue sharing funds to the other set.
Well, I understand that right now, but you can borrow with that understanding that you're going to replenish that money, because you're not gonna get it until it's all over, project's all over with anyway, right?
No, you apply for it as you spend it in a project for design, for right-of-way acquisition, and then ultimately for construction. You can apply every month for reimbursement, you just have to show invoices of what you spent. But what can happen, I mean, the Green Spring Road project, where we have a lot of revenue sharing funds right now, that's, we feel like that's gonna happen soon. If we move forward with this project, the Park Street project, it'll be starting in development. If later on in the development, you realize $710,000 may not be enough to do everything we wanna do, if there's lighting and landscaping, we should be far enough along in the other project to get a good gauge on whether or not we'll have funds available there that we can ultimately transfer over to cover it.
That's exactly what I'm
And
saying.
as long as they're in existence, it's my understanding, John, we could, each application cycle, we can apply for more.
You can apply for more, yeah,
Right.
it's just a timing thing. The VDOT's only doing revenue sharing every 2 years now. They used to do it annually. So you apply for them, but you don't find out until typically the next June or July whether you even get them, and then be able to use them at that fiscal year.
Right, one of the things I think you said was an excellent thought, and that's because that's the timing of everything. Do you think you could put us together a little timetable when you think that those should hit? So that way, that would give us an idea of exactly how to plan our you know, to do our strategery for doing the project.
Okay.
Because that would be really helpful, because that way we have a timetable. When we have a timetable, it's more palatable, we can see it, and then that way we'll keep on it. It's too easy to get things lost in the shuffle, as we all know.
And maybe present that at May 15th meeting, or just to have it,
Well, I
if
mean,
not June
that's-
as well.
yeah, well, that's, you know, however, when do you leave?
Just
Before the
add
end of the month,
it to
but-
that quarterly report.
Okay.
And then you and Tyler, if you could work on it before
Okay.
you leave with Tyler.
You know, because
Yeah.
it'd be great to have Tyler on board so that he's really up to speed with everything too.
Okay.
So does anybody else have anything they want to say about that, or have any questions about it? Did you understand everything you heard?
Sure, it was crystal clear.
Yeah.
I thought you was looking at me when you said that.
Okay.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna move down now to the review resolution of the Council of the Town of Agnew in support of the proposed modification by VDOT of the Exit 19 project.
John, you wanna take that in terms of what?
I will.
What is necessary?
again, just if everyone's not up to speed on what this is about, this is the Exit 19 project that Washington County applied for and was successful in getting funding for through what was HB2s, now it's called Smart Scale. It's another VDOT funding program, or basically how they grade their projects now to get them on the 6-year plan. So this is for improvements up at Exit 19 to solve some of the traffic and safety issues up there. The original application put in roughly a year and a half or so ago had a certain conceptual design to bring the ramp, the off-ramp for southbound and Empire Drive together in the vicinity of Cracker Barrel, and then bring it back down to Main Street at a signalized intersection right across from the on-ramp for southbound, you know, that loop on-ramp. That's what the original estimate was, that's what the original project scope was, and it was again successfully graded and funded. The VDOT engineers have come up with an alternate design that they feel very confident in, that's not only going to speed up the project, they feel like there's going to be a time savings of approximately 1 year, but they're also estimating a cost savings of $2 million. And part of it is less right-of-way acquisition. Basically, it's going to bring Empire Drive, shift Empire Drive and Main Street intersection a little bit west at its own signalized intersection, but separated from the ramps. And in doing so, they're going to restrict one of the on-ramps to eliminate that weave that everybody probably notices when they're getting on or traveling through at Exit 19. When folks are trying to get on going southbound, there's a weave there that's kind of a safety issue that they're trying to get rid of. So we've got drawings of the concept, but VDOT was asking for certainly resolutions of support from Washington County and from the town, because the project does come inside the town corporate limit and obviously affects some town businesses and residents as well. So I don't know if that's enough description or too much description, but if you have any questions.
So it's a shame Mr. Macbeth is not here.
Just what I was saying.
I was
He's been waiting for this
He has worked on this for years, but, so this will fix Empire Drive.
It will bring the intersection into a signalized intersection, so the biggest concern has always been the left turn movement coming out of Empire Drive and trying to get onto Main Street or access that ramp to get on the interstate going southbound toward Bristol. So yes, this makes it quite a bit safer movement. Okay. And improves the level of service for that intersection.
It develops a four-way intersection there that allows
right.
hotels.
Yes.
With signal. I mean, I think it's a good plan, and it does solve what we need, and with the savings and completed quicker, it looks like a win-win.
It looks great. I'm just a little bit, again, I'm not a traffic engineer. I was trying to figure out how they're moving Empire Drive.
It just, right in front of the place. I looked at the.
I've got a drawing if you all.
It's kind of hard to see at this packet, but
Right.
The county's.
Oh, is it in the packet?
Yes, it is.
I
I don't know if you can see it.
But I'm,
Now watch the county.
County did what it needed to see.
I have
Well,
trouble
also
with
the-
maps.
also
Right, well, yeah, I mean, especially at small scale, it's hard to see, but
Yeah.
Here's existing Empire Drive, comes in right here. Eliminate that and shift it over
So-
close to the Exxon,
Yeah, right next to the exit.
right next to the Exxon.
Okay, so
At a
it's that
signalized
cars
Cars are
intersection.
being sold right here.
Right.
Yeah, and there's the entrance to, like, Councilman Howard said, Huddle House and Wendy's and all that. It comes across there and becomes one four-way signalized intersection. Still have signals at the ramps,
Yeah.
but then.
Wow.
Yeah.
If Mr. Macbeth, take this upstairs. If he's here, you need to
Ah.
show him.
In looking at this, this was presented by the VDOT, they're already showing faith and trust in you, John. The VDOT engineers came down and presented it to the county. And and said exactly what John did, and the county moved to do a resolution also to in support of the changes.
We mirrored that resolution pretty much, that they had put together already.
Okay.
How long do you think that'll take to get going, the whole project?
the whole project. John made the time.
The original timetable was the project was slated to start in 2021, but as it said in the information from VDOT and included in this resolution, they're hoping this speeds it up by a year because there's less right-of-way acquisition, which means both time and cost savings.
Right, I know the residents there will be quite pleased, because I've talked to several of them, and that was one was in a traffic accident there, coming out of that Empire Drive on the number 11, and so it's a serious problem, and I'm glad to see that it's gonna get fixed.
Well, I personally would love to see some access management improvements made on that whole stretch from Old 11 to the interstate, maybe in conjunction with this project, because it's chaotic down there, to say the least.
Especially with the new hotel going in, it's going in beside, First Bank.
Right.
And well, and also the planning commission, we had a design, a structure design, redesign, update, from the glass company. The glass company's bought 84 lumber. So the glass company will be the glass company, and there's other two using that to come out on one street. So it would really be nice, because that is a street. I think Mr. Kelly was working on something, I don't know if it's come to fruition or how far along that is, but I know that you've been working hard on that.
Well, my hope was, to tell you the truth, that, well, I didn't know what was gonna light on the 84 Lumber Company property. Something much larger in terms of commercial property located there. Then John and I were looking at the possibility of a signal at that location. But if VDOT gets their signal in first down there, it's my understanding we might get beat out of the signal because of the proximity of their signal.
That's true, but the good thing traffic-wise is, like you mentioned, the glass company will not be a big traffic generator, so it won't be like you're dumping a lot of additional traffic on the Main Street there. And the signal where VDOT's proposing it with this Exit 19 project will provide some gaps occasionally, just naturally in the function of the signal, that hopefully will give some gaps for folks to make that left turn out of some of the businesses.
Yeah, it already has the one that they put in.
Right.
There on the entrance or the northbound exit off of 81. They've already started gapping out. I've been up there several times just to check it out, and it gives you pretty good leeway in there.
But if you can also do some access management on those businesses in that area, see if you can reduce the number of entrances, I think that would help out as well.
Okay, you referring to the Fairfield when you were mentioning the hotel?
They're also redoing two of the other hotels at Exit. They're not increasing the size, just the exterior.
Yeah, I think it's Holiday Express is going to be the Red Roof Inn now.
And the other one changed.
Oh, no, it ain't gonna be
No,
Holiday Express.
American
It's gonna be the old Empire Motel. It's gonna be, I'm sorry.
Red Roof, and then the other one is gonna be Homewood Suites.
It's gonna be all gray.
Okay, so we're gonna read that resolution tonight. You all are okay with that, right? Okay. So we're gonna review the regular agenda. Mr. Kelly?
Okay, you wanna talk about number 5?
Sure.
Real quick, it won't take long. Discussion of requests for comments, from VDOT regarding the Exit 17 project.
We moved that
You're on the work
one to,
session. Oh, I was here.
we moved that to the 15th, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, we moved it.
Okay, we're gonna talk about it on the 15th, okay. We're not time sensitive on that, are we, John? We are, aren't we?
If you're time sensitive, we'll
Let's
talk
see.
about it.
They wanted to, comments back at least by May 31st, so I would encourage
Yeah.
some discussion. I don't think it's really too
This-
difficult to, it's pretty standard questions that they send out anytime they're doing a project like this in an area.
And this is something that we did at Exit 14, and John and I and the staff just gets together and we provide the answers to the questions. It doesn't really require the council to have any action on this particular item. I just bring it to your attention that they are now moving on to exit 17 by asking those questions, which is usually the first step in moving that project forward. So I don't think it needs to be on the next agenda unless anybody has any questions. John and I will just go ahead and answer the questions and turn it into VDOT.
What is, and I guess it's just my naivete, but what, give me an example of a couple of questions they're gonna ask. What is it, I'm sorry.
It's like,
Oh, never mind, I'll read it.
It's really just to gauge the locality's perception and planning, and if there's any controversy or opposition to the road project potentially. It's just kind of a fact-finding mission a little bit on VDOT to proceed with their right-of-way acquisition and design.
And that was from Miss Elaine Sarber, VDOT.
yeah.
Forgive me for not having this. I got a brand new iPad, and I didn't get the stuff to look at anything until CJ did just now, or not CJ. Little's not little CJ. There you go, thank you. That'll be nice.
I'll never live it down, I think so.
Stacy, I embarrassed you.
I know, it's
Sorry.
okay, no.
So is everybody all right with Mr. Kelly and Mr. Dew and their staff answering the questions about the exit 17 realignment? Okay. No more questions about that. So we're down to the May the 1st regular agenda, and was there something you wanted to review, Ms. Watson?
Well, the only thing I think, there's maybe one or two things that are really worthy of review. One, of course, is the budget. And what is necessary to happen tonight with the budget is it's a public hearing. So you will have to open up the public hearing and allow public comment. Ordinarily, you would allow me to give an overview of the proposed budget. And tonight, the council does not need to take any action at all on the budget. That would occur at the June meeting when you would take the appropriate action on the budget. However, if there are noticeable things in the budget that people are going to express challenge to at the June meeting, it would be helpful to management and staff to know in advance so we can see if we can be prepared to address those types of issues. Okay. Anybody have any questions about the budget? I know Wayne and Cindy, this will be, I think, your all's first budget. So feel free to ask questions as I walk through the budget upstairs if you have specific questions. I didn't see that. Of course, the resolution that John just mentioned will be an item that will need to be read on the exit 19 smart scale. And then we need to enact the resolution relative to Leo's, and Stacy Reitler, our Director of Human Resources, has put that together for you. And this might be a good time to talk about Leo's to a certain degree. I know that all the police officers are very happy about this being put into this year's budget, and it will be a tremendous benefit to them and allow them to retire earlier and for us to reduce cost in the police department budget over time as a result of the attrition of high-paying officers into lower-paying officers' jobs. There is one thing that comes to mind that just was not anything that I really gave any thought to at the time we were working through this. But you have the potential, and I'm John, is it okay if I use you? You have the potential that you have someone who is of the age when they start into hazardous duty, that they will never get the benefit of hazardous duty because they have to have 25 years in. And if a person is of age 50 when they start in their first year of hazardous duty, they will never get that benefit from that. So to me, it seems unfair that we would require those individuals to have a reduction in their health insurance, although we need to look into some legalities about this to determine whether or not we can do that. And that would apply not just to somebody like John, who's on the fire department, but it would apply to a police officer, say age 50 or 55, who applied first time as a police officer and had no prior experience. So those are certain things that I want you all to be aware of. I think you all don't have to do anything on that. I think I can take care of that administratively from within, as long as it's legal for us to do that. But does everybody understand what I'm saying? Because they're gonna be, when he turns 75, he's gonna be on Medicare. And that's what Leo's, that's what Leo's is designed to fill the gap of, is from the time they retire at age 50 up until they get Medicare.
So it ends when they start drawing Medicare?
Yes.
So I guess what you're saying is you'd like for the leverage to make sure that all the legalities are met, and that if they are all met, you exempt folks that are not really ever gonna draw from it.
Right, and I'll take care of that, and the council would not have to take care of any action on that.
So is council okay with that?
I'm fine.
Okay. Now, it might be a good time to talk about, Mr. Kelly, what do you think about I-2?
Every time I take a bite.
I'm sorry, not, I-2, the email that we all got.
Yeah, I too, and I'm gonna let Kevin walk us through how he goes about evaluating this. This is sort of unique in that we had somebody protest the awarding of a bid before it's ever been awarded. And Kevin, why don't you walk council through the process that you went through in getting the bids to repair the tennis courts, and tell them why your recommendation is what it's going to be tonight.
Okay. We sent out RFPs back on April the 3rd. We had them due back on April the 21st, and when those came back in that afternoon, we had 3 bids that were actually submitted. And in your council packets, there was one chart that showed the actual 3 bidders, and those were the things that we had listed on there that they needed to have, whether licensed in Virginia, bid form, can they begin to work in May, references, certificate of insurance, and the response. So those came in, so those were done. So the first of the week, Darren took and actually went through the individual packets. There were 5 scoring criteria, total cost, which would be, and that value was worth 45 points for the lowest bid. The second lowest bid then would be 44 points, the next lowest bid would be 43 points, and there was only 3 bids, so it stopped there. I looked at the references, and references were worth 20 points. The references on 2 of the companies, the top 2 were actually outstanding. One didn't even submit me the references, so I didn't give them, they were awarded 0 points. But both references and experience were outstanding on both companies. The time frame, we wanted to work to begin in May, so it could be paid out before the end of this fiscal year. So all 3 companies could do that with no problem. That was worth 20. There was no difference in any process, so we gave each one 20. The warranty was standard industry warranty, which is 2 years on workmanship and quality of paint. cracks are cracks. You can't do anything other than if you dug them up and then you paved the whole thing. So they all met the same exact warranty. So when everything was done to that point, the last category is customer service as it related to the RFP. And that category basically was just a matter of what set one company above or below another company and what did they submit. The three companies submitted their packets, and in those packets I received from Advanced Athletics, they sent me a packet that had the requested information. They were not requested to send anything above and beyond that. There was, but what would set them apart, there was nothing that we really had to evaluate on this other than they sent me, and I believe copies, they had the requested form, the list of their references, and their insurance. And that's all I got from this company. And they were the low bid by $470. The other two companies submitted to me. McConnell sent me their copies of paperwork, which was required, but they also sent me their material list, how they would do the process, the standard of materials and everything that they listed in here, so I had exactly what they were going to apply to the court, so I knew exactly, are you going to give me cheap paint, are you going to give me good paint, or what are you going to do when it came down to the award. And so they submitted this. The CourtWorks is a company, and they submitted me their regular evaluation form, which I requested, all the references. Then they gave me a breakdown of exactly how the expenditures were going to be spent to come up with their bid. They gave me a list of all of their products, as well as the material list of what they were going to do in the process, of course, their insurance, and they sent me a color sample of exactly what we're getting with the textures, the whole thing. And so, based on that, I gave this company, which was CourtWorks, 5 points. McConnell, 4 points because they had done above and beyond. And then the other company, I went ahead and gave them 3 points just, because they had told me what they were going to use, but I had no, other than me looking that up. McConnell and CourtWorks are both companies that are in Virginia. They are both companies that we currently do business with or have done business with in the past 12 months. And both have done a quality job on everything that they have done for us. And so as a result of that, they were awarded 5, 4, and 3. And if you look back to your scoring sheet, how that would reflect, total points for CourtWorks was 99 points, Advanced Athletics was 98 points, and McConnell was 77 points. And even though CourtWorks was the middle bid, difference of $470 in the point system, that's who I make the recommendation that we go with based on the point values, and that's how that was determined.
So you said the other two are Virginia-based companies?
No, CourtWorks is a Virginia-based company, and McConnell is. Advanced Athletics, which was the low bid, is actually from Georgia.
I see.
And they're the ones who protested.
And they also don't have a Virginia license. Right. And that, I saw that
We
question.
looked at that closely too, and found that the objective points test administered by Mr. Worley was done fairly and objectively. And there were 2 code sections, Code of Virginia 2.2 4324B, along with section 2-199 of our town code, allows for, in the case of a tie, and there really wasn't a tie, there was 1 point difference, but in the event that there is one, then these both allow for preference to in-state products and or services. And it was significant to us that the out-of-state company was not affiliated with Virginia State Corporation Commission, in that it could do business in Virginia. So even though it was a lower bid by somewhat, we are not compelled to award to the lowest bidder. We go with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and generally in the best interest of the company.
Very good, thank you.
I didn't hear any of them.
Thank you for that clarification.
I didn't hear any of them say or were listed as people who had town permits.
Right, they don't generally, I asked that question, and they don't generally buy a town license until they are awarded the bid, but they do buy it when they award the bid.
We don't let them do it unless unless they buy the license.
Absolutely.
Who did the one at the Coops?
Courtworks.
Courtworks, they just completed a project there.
Yeah.
I've looked at it, very good work. I think that has to come in.
And before any company would be, before we would issue a notice to proceed, they would have to submit to us, like we did before, a current licensed in Virginia and a town business license before they would be issued the notice to proceed.
Do they have to have their contractor's license too?
They would, they both, and they
They
both.
are.
Ms. Kingsley and I had looked up and we were trying to research a little bit of them the other day when we were putting it.
Okay, so Mr. Worley is gonna recommend the middle bid court works
Court work.
tonight. Does council have any objections before we move on? Okay, while we're on resolutions, I received a resolution from Men's Health Month. Now, I don't know when Women's Health Month is, but I received something from Men's Health Month, and they want us to proclaim June as Men's Health Month. So, it says despite advances in medical technology and research, men continue to live an average of 5 years less than women, with Native American and African American men having the lowest life expectancy, and educating the public, healthcare providers, and anyway, it's a whole bunch of where is it. Do you all want to have this put in the June council packet to declare June Men's Health Month?
If it's a proclamation, you can do that on your own as the mayor, and it doesn't require council action.
Oh.
In that vein, in that stead, we have another.
Well, I like to tell you everything that I get in the mail.
In that stead, I'd like to also mention that we had, I talked to Kathy the other day about Kathy Gentry Hurley, that she had called up. She was representative and works for the, is it Heritage, which healthcare is that?
Commonwealth.
Commonwealth Health. And they are in the process of wanting to have June also declared in some way brain injury and Alzheimer's Month. They did a project last year with little or no, kind of on a shoestring, trying to raise money, and they were able to raise $15,000 on one weekend. So they think with a little bit more exposure, they could even do more. And so they had asked me, and I talked to Mayor Lowe already, to have that to where that we could maybe present that to them, present that to her. What we don't have is we don't have a pre-written proclamation like that she got from the Men's Health.
And that's something that's extremely important. We need something from them because we would have no idea what the language should be for anything like that. They would have to provide that
I'll
to
call
us.
her.
Kim puts it in proclamation format, Kathy signs it, we get it framed, and then we present it to them.
We did, she emailed me last year, and we did something last year, but I don't remember what it was. I don't know if it was a proclamation, but, yeah, see if she doesn't have something that she's affiliated with for a proclamation.
You could do a testimony.
I really can. The
Can we
brain
make,
part,
can
anyway.
we make a bunch of proclamations for the same month?
Sure.
I think, yeah, June, I will tell you, growing up in Southwest Virginia, June is also ice cream and dairy month, so.
Okay, all right, so everybody's okay with me signing this Men's Health Month proclamation? Now, I'm gonna let Miss Triplett, she actually caught something that I should have caught but didn't, and that is that May is Business Appreciation Month. And so I'm gonna let Miss Triplett ask you all about this. Do you have yours?
I don't have any.
I kept a copy for you.
It is just a proclamation stating that May is Business Appreciation Month, and it just is thanking our businesses and Abingdon for their innovation, creation, expansion, and employment, and for making an economic, preserving our economic well-being and improving the quality of life for all of our citizens. So it doesn't require any kind of vote or anything, but just a reminder that our local businesses are very important to our economy and that we need to support them if we can.
So, And they're gonna put this on, Twitter and Facebook and
Make sure Pam gets a copy of that sometime, because we keep all of those in our book, so.
all the town communication, okay?
So, are you talking to get the proclamation? So can we look at and see if they already have the one from last year for the brain injury?
Yeah, we can look and see if. we
I mean,
got it. I don't
I'll
remember.
contact her still, I'll contact her.
They typically redo they sometimes will change the language to fit whatever new calls that they're.
I'm not sure they had a proclamation last month.
I
I
don't
think they
remember.
wanted us to paint the town purple last
Last
month.
year? Last year was, in their event, again, this year's gonna be called Paint the Town Purple.
Yeah, they just asked for our participation with, and we sent out some information about Paint the Town Purple, that they did not have a proclamation that I recall.
Never mind.
So, we are down to, we've kind of completed the regular work session agenda, and we're back on our, work session agenda, update on partnership with Virginia Holmes Community College. Mr. Howard.
We're having a press conference scheduled for 9 o'clock in the morning in front of the municipal building to kind of kick this off. And, Tanya has been working on this also with some different businesses and getting the decals on the windows will be 40 on there, so it should kick off tomorrow. We have ordered the banners. Right.
We've received the hardware
Okay.
to actually attach them to the poles, but we've not gotten our banners yet.
They will be up as soon as we can schedule that to be done.
Okay. So we'll be here at 9 in the morning. I'll look at my calendar to make sure I have it on there. No call, I do. Okey dokey. And now D3, we've already discussed that. It's going to the Tourism Advisory Committee for the amendments that we made last month, for them to report to them what we asked for. And then it'll come back to us June the 1st to pass the new tourism advisory bylaws. Update on town ordinance, Deb Eisenhower.
Well, I have something to give out to you, but not, wait till you get home to read it, if you don't mind. It's for your study and your complete entertainment. This one is the first working draft copy of the ordinance that we're calling homestay. It relates directly to Airbnb and how that relates to what we already have. And writing a new ordinance, it reminded me all over again how very complicated it can be, because it interrelates to so many ordinances that we already have on the books. And this particular one touches and concerns several other ordinances, among which, not particularly in any order, it's going to affect tweaking and amending the business license ordinance, certain tax ordinance, the zoning ordinance, sign and safety-related ordinances, and it's going to involve the departments of code compliance, all types of inspection, building, and fire prevention. So this one is this is the first shot out of the cannon. So when you look through it, make notes, and we will work on getting it where we need it to be. There are some things that are in it that I'm not totally sure about, but I have a call tomorrow with the town attorney in Blacksburg so that he can better explain to me why there are two different types of days. And I also have to involve Chuck in that list of people too. Put Chuck. We have a whole package of material for registration that we have to produce. I've already been working with some folks on some ideas there to get the registration going, to get the tax sheets going for lodging tax, and the actual agreement between the homestay host and the town of Abingdon. It even goes into certain types of information such as ABC license, if that is indeed a required or a desired feature. So that's what we have on that one, and since that one is so complicated, it pretty much checks off some of the others that are on the list. Hopefully it's a good start, but I would ask that you please read over it, react, and write down any questions you might have. I know that Rick and Cindy will especially be up to par with exactly what we need to ask question-wise. We want to fashion it so that it levels the playing field between B&B operators and hotel motel folks. And I think I have all that covered in the whereas portions at the beginning, so there you go.
May I ask just one question, and thumbing through this, and I might just have missed this. Is there a statement about the zoning requirements in
What we'll have to do is, what we have in there is zoning has to be approved. And then on the portion that will be in the registration packet, we will have the statements there. So it would be any area that has residential designations. So then we have to go into the zoning ordinance and cross-reference the fact that that can also be an appropriate use.
Okay, but you're saying any that have it now can be appropriate use in that zone, but anyone, but zonings that aren't approved for that, then would be excluded?
Would not be.
Would they be excluded?
They would be excluded.
Okay.
So we would list the ones that are inclusive, and
So if someone had a lodging like an Airbnb or a homestay, they could come and ask the planning and zoning board to change the zoning in that area, or add on additional zoning capabilities or business capabilities?
business capabilities, it just requires residential.
Okay, so you're saying any residence in Abington can have an Airbnb?
Yes.
Even if it isn't approved for bed and breakfast?
Even if
Yes.
So now bed and breakfasts are okay for them to go in there without approval too? Because if it's not, then that doesn't level the playing field, and that's really, and what that is you're discriminating.
you can't have signage for an Airbnb. That's one main difference.
You know, I didn't have a home beauty shop, but I did look into this years and years ago when I thought about doing it. And that was, you can have any kind of home-based business in your home as long as you don't put out signs. There's some advertising rules. There's little rules that say, you know, you can't do some of these things, but you can do anything you want to inside the four walls of your house. And so, is that kind of how this is?
It kind of is. Now, if there are certain, let's say, for example, in my situation, if I have a duplex, then I would have to provide notice and certain other kinds of, for the folks that I share the driveway with, that kind of thing.
Right.
That would have to be accepted and signed off on by those folks.
Well, my question comes from back when we had someone in town that was doing something, it was a fabric shop or something that they were doing in town, in residential, and that wasn't allowed in that district. And we asked them to shut it down. And I don't know what it is, but you probably could look back and wonder what it is, that's what it is. So what I'm looking at is that slippery slope that we get on to where the subdivisions or streets are completely mired down with traffic because every home has something in it.
Right. Well, this is the kind of thing that we're
I mean,
running.
no, you don't have the possibilities.
No, there was a time that, you know, the town shut down some massage parlors that weren't really. And that's what we were joking about. I didn't mean to laugh, but
And we
that's
can't
what
get
we
much
were
slipperier than
that.
But this is why you all get to see this proposed, at least idea, early on, so that we can work out any questions that we might think in terms of. Okay?
But most of the residential zoning allows for in-home businesses. Now, I guess the question is that we originally had was, if they have an Airbnb and they're doing it within their house, and they're only, you know, and they're following all the rules, do they have to have a business license?
Yes.
Okay, that
And pay
was
taxes.
and they have to pay, lodging tax.
Yes, because,
And they have to sign up for it.
yes, they have to register. We'll put together the packet as
Okay.
we refine what we have in this ordinance.
But, you know, and we're going back to the zoning, and just, because what happens, it really does confuse me. And as you're looking at the zoning, and you have usages, and then you have, you know, the exemptions of them, where you can have, you know, special use permit. And this would negate, to me, several special use permits. And so that's what I'm worried about, is that you're gutting the zoning, and you're allowing anything to be able to go in. You know, certainly there's a place for B&B and Airbnb and homestay. I know that some people, I know Janet's on Airbnb, and she does bookings through there. It's open to everybody, but what I don't wanna do is, I don't wanna have, I guess as I'm looking at it, a plethora of mom and pop shops all over the town. I know when my mother had a floor, she started in her basement, and she was told she needed to move out, she had to move out of her basement. And so, and she didn't have any signage out front or anything else, so.
Well,
I think the planning commission is probably gonna have to weigh in on this and flesh some things out at
Probably
some
so.
point. I don't know that the council's gonna be able to, I
Yeah.
think some of the zoning
Well,
questions
no, I
are
agree.
gonna
No, I-
have to be answered by the planning
Well,
commission.
they are,
first,
yeah.
so.
I think what we need to do is read this,
Yeah.
make notes on it,
Yeah.
put it on the work session for
Sure.
next month, and then when you're happy with what we like, send it to the planning commission.
Either that or the other way around. Usually stuff comes from the planning commission to us.
Well, they're asking for your input because this is legislation from the state.
Right, and the reason it seems to be important to organizations like VML for all the ordinance is to be written by the localities is simply because otherwise it's gonna slip away from us. And the ability to collect those taxes is going to go to Airbnb as they now wish to do it. And they want to remit to the state only, not to the localities.
Right.
So if it's ours to be had, then we need to get on with it.
Okay, so it'll be on the work session agenda next month, please.
It will.
Please read this. Now, the thing that occurred to me as I said that hasn't come back, and I guess that we just approved it because we'd already made the changes in a work session, was the employee handbook. We have never put that back on the agenda.
Correct, and, we need to, be honest with you, I didn't leave with a clear idea. I thought council was done with the personnel policy meeting.
Right.
But I think, and I believe Stacy sent everybody a final copy after we
She
made all the
did.
changes. You know, would there be a problem with them going ahead and approving it as it was presented to you by Stacy with the amendments?
So, just to remind everybody, we did get a copy of the corrected, employee handbook, and if you'll also review that, we can put that on next month's work session, June work session, for approval. Or, I'm sorry,
Regular agenda.
June regular council meeting for approval. So the Airbnb ordinance will be on the work session, the employee handbook will be on the regular agenda.
And I use that because it certainly sets it apart, but Airbnb is not the only platform. There's about 16, and that just happens to be the one that most people remember. So I can give you a list of those if you'd like to have them, but there are several different. It's like calling a tissue a Kleenex, that's a brand name, so we'll call it Homestay.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on, I like that, to D5, update on urban pathway project. This is the one we're all excited about.
Yes, very excited about. We're still trying to get the authorization to bid from VDOT. We are turning in the last documents tomorrow morning, going to deliver them to the district office there. So we're hoping within a couple of weeks we'll have the authorization bid, and the target is to try to get it bids back in time for the June council meeting for award to start construction.
Okay, so it'll be probably June council meeting. Woo-hoo! That's been 10 years coming.
6 years, well, 6 years and 10 months since we had the charrette. 6 years and 10 months, 2 months since we had the charrette. It was April the 27th of, when the tornado hit, 6 years ago.
The first involvement I had, I remember was
2011.
2013, on the project. I know the previous planning director, I think, was involved.
Oh, y'all had a charrette here the night of the tornado. That was 2011. I can tell you who was here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so, update on RFP for ground penetrating radar at the Meadows, nothing new to report. Update on air quality review for exit 17, nothing new to report. Reports on the following town-owned properties, and there's nothing new to report. However, yeah, go ahead.
We got some bids back, I'll throw this out real quickly, on the mitigation of the asbestos down at the muster grounds on the park that we're talking about. Those bids came in at about half of what we actually expected. So that never happened, so I was extremely excited, and they've got the go-ahead, and we hope they're gonna get started in the next couple of weeks on getting all that taken care of and cleaned up, so.
And so if it came in on half, maybe we could start scraping paint.
I should not have told you that it came in on half, I should have told you it came in 3/4 over for, no, I'm just kidding.
Either that or, yeah.
You jumping on that money as soon as I get home.
Very good, that's good to hear.
I misspoke, it came in way over.
Okay, so, we're down to update on VDOT upkeep of exit ramps. Really nothing new to
I
report.
don't have anything new to report. You know, I've asked if anybody has comments or observations to always offer those. I haven't personally heard from anyone lately on that, so if there's any feedback, certainly welcome to hear it.
Okay. Council, everybody okay?
Do we want to leave that on the agenda? Okay.
I think it should come off, however, I've reserved the right at any point in time to complain to VDOT again.
I know someone you might be able
Turn
to
to the
call.
deer left.
Yeah, I did, John.
I think they've got people to do that.
Update on split rail fence at exit 17. Anything to report on that?
Who's that? I'm embarrassed to admit, I can't find my notes from last council meeting, and I can't remember where we left that one, so if there's any,
You had sent
I got some
out
cost estimates.
different types of fence
Yeah,
to
we
the
looked at them, I think,
members.
And I gave you the name of the company that Emmett and the,
Right, and the-
Veterans Park were gonna
I
use.
think we looked at some of the
And
pictures
it's in
from that
Sparta,
website.
In Sparta, North Carolina, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think what the name of it was called.
I've got the website and the company
Okay,
information, but I'm not sure what the resolution is, or
Well,
what the.
we need to have the cost of what it would be. As I understood it, John, VDOT said we still had to have the other fence in front of the split.
Well, it needs to be, yeah, they require a solid, so to speak, fence other than split rail. So if we were gonna do split rail, we'd have to replace the woven wire. I mean, that was one of the main goals, was to replace the look of the welded wire, that we went with, but the requirement, yeah, yes.
No, another thing I was gonna say is, this is the first time I've ever heard saying that they woven wire or something similar to that would be in front of it.
Well,
it may
not be.
Was it behind it?
Because
Behind it.
behind it, that's no big deal. You can run that straight up through there,
Right.
and then do the split rail behind it. It's gonna cover most of it anyway.
The other thing was, the permit was originally applied for and issued, granted, to do a picket, an ornamental metal picket fence. And I think I mentioned the last meeting before that, the guy that does the permit for VDOT, that permit has expired at this point. It was only for a certain amount of time. So whatever we do, we're gonna have to apply for a new permit, and state in there specifically what's being asked to be done.
But that one, for some, like the council last time, we were looking, please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not saying that, was a split rail snake fence, is what we were looking at to go down there and do that. I think all of us agreed on that the split rail snake fence is what we would prefer.
I have a question.
So,
Yeah, it's just a zigzag, just a zigzag, they call it zigzag snake, anything else.
If that
Sorry, I don't know my
intersection,
fence drawing.
if that intersection is gonna be is gonna be like totally redone, I've got this question. Why would we wanna spend money on this now, and let's wait till we can get our new road and everything, cause you're just gonna have to tear down everything, and that's expense? I mean, that's not a question, that's a statement, but what does council feel about that situation?
Say the same thing.
Well,
It's cost.
okay, well, one of the things is, we're only looking at doing, as my understanding is one side of it, are we looking at doing all four of them?
Well, that redesign that I looked at shows a big
No,
overlay.
no, we're talking about the redesign. I guess I was talking about the fence, and I guess what we're looking at, if we do a split rail zigzag or snake fence, those are the easiest to build, and they're the easiest to take down, it's basically just stacking and unstacking. So that fence could be certainly used anywhere else in town. And so, if we do that, and we use it anywhere inside, we can go ahead and make ourselves look nice for a couple of years, or 3 years, or how long it takes to get the interchange in. We've got that in place, and then when it's time, then we just unstack it and we use it in another location.
Well, VDOT will have to replace it, Rick, and John's got plenty of money down there, so.
Can you sign off on that before you leave here? Tonight?
I think you brought up a good point, Ms. Mayor, Humphreys, however, I was thinking in the back of my head that you have to put the back fence up first, and we don't know how you have to put that fence in, then you have to put the split rail fence in. So you're gonna have the expenditure, you can't reuse that woven wire once you take it down.
Right.
So that would be like tossing trash.
Yeah, well, what I was thinking about was looking at it to be able to use the existing woven wire fence and then putting the snake fence in front of it. I haven't stepped it off or gone up there because of threat of being arrested.
Well, I was looking at that as well when I came down through there. I've looked at it
I've got a
several
little
times.
something
And the one thing I wanna question is there enough room to put that snake fence?
There's not a lot of room,
Yeah.
it'd be crowded.
That's
Yeah,
what I thought.
It'd be
So
crowded.
we might consider holding off on that. That's my opinion.
Okay, whatever.
But whatever council wants to do, it's not mine, that's only one vote for me.
Doesn't matter to me. Sounds good. I was just trying to make it look good now, and, we're gonna wait 2 years, 10 years, or however long it is, 20 years. and
I'll just be happy if they pick up the trash. Or if they let us pick up the trash without a.
I really think we should pay the guy that has the sign down there that's homeless. He's the same guy every week. And if we just paid him to pick it up, he wouldn't be homeless anymore. And he goes up and picks the trash up and comes back.
We're just awful.
He's the same guy.
He does one of the shifts anyway.
Yeah, and there's a little
He's
van that
staying in
picks
the
him up.
hotel over there too, Rick.
I'm sorry?
He's staying in the hotel over there too.
Okay, let's get back to this. Okay, we have a little bit of time. Mr. Kelly, on any of these things that we put off, would you like to talk about?
Good God, what a mess.
Yeah, so we put off 2,
I would just say
3,
no.
7, and 3. So C2, 3, or 7.
C2, we gotta have our consultant, C3, it falls in line with C2, and then what was the other?
C7.
Update on it, that one was, Mr. Humphries.
Rick, would you like to, since we have a little bit of time, would you like to talk about the update on the new rules related to dogs at the farmer's market?
No.
So do you
But
want to
thank
take
you,
that
though.
off the agenda?
Oh, no, I'm talking about not tonight's agenda, but on the work session agenda.
Okay.
I want to put it on the work session agenda for May the 15th. Oh, you're talking about tonight, we'll like to put it on there. I'll talk about tonight. Oh, yeah, we can talk about it, yeah, just
Got it.
briefly. Let's talk about it briefly.
We
right
got
now.
30 minutes,
We
there's
got
no
30
sense in
minutes.
extending our time at the next meeting.
Yeah, well, that's true. So what happened was, the farmer's market opened up, I went down there, and there's several dogs, probably at least 10 to 12 dogs, when I was down there, which was only a period of about 45 minutes, that did not go in the farmer's market because it's now posted saying that only service dogs can go in. So I asked Mr. Worley over there, and Mr. Worley said, well, had been decided by, was it the farmer's market that decided it, or who was it decided?
Well, we had several complaints from the ASD and farmers and actually from, users, patrons and all that during the farmer's market, it doesn't apply to events and other things, it's not for that, it's really just during the farmer's market, that they were having issues with, dogs, getting too far out on the leash and tripping individuals. The dogs actually urinating on produce and things down there. They had a couple of times of dogs actually, the individuals had someone went able to approach a dog and the dog, snarl teeth and all of that. Luckily, we've not had anybody bitten and all of that, and so they went the route of asking about putting up signs just so that way during the farmer's market they wouldn't run into issues with the dogs and creating a situation.
Who put the sign on the farmer?
Yeah, who
did that? Who had it made and put it on there? That's what I wasn't clear about.
Yeah, actually it was ASD and all that. The sign actually we ordered because that was a standard sign. And, that way it was put up there. At first they were just putting them up during the thing, and somebody's actually went back and they screwed them up on it. They were on a teacup hook that they took up and down as they went, and I've got to go back.
But somebody from ASD actually screwed them in.
They screwed them in, I've got to go back, and I told them, actually I talked to Darnell today, and that was they need to go back to being taken up and down just for the farmer's market when they're meeting down there.
So who has the end say on farmer's market, what they put up and put down and allow and don't allow?
Well, the facility actually would come back to us. I mean, we own the facility. The daily operation of the market would actually be what they would do.
There are two sets of rules. We have our own set by ordinance with regard to the pavilion itself, and then there is a set of rules that the actual farmer's market maintains for its operations during the time that they are there. But we have our own rules.
So, and that's the crutch of the whole thing. We've had folks in the past complain that they've asked to be set up down there during certain events that when so I'm kind of confused too. So inside the pavilion is and the farmer's market has Tuesday and Saturday. They also have say over the ground. Is that correct?
We've let them, I'm not sure how it's specifically worded in the.
Do they have a lawyer that they can communicate to our lawyer with? I mean, of course, if it violates someone's rights, then we would want to know. I mean, they may easily violate someone's rights unknowingly.
We've had numerous times when people have come to the council over the years on these exact same issues, and there's never been a clear understanding of whether we would prohibit certain types of vendors over other vendors. The biggest crux of the thing has always been, and Kathy, you and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all the most tenured, but has been over whether or not we should allow vendors who are not local vendors participate there. And then the second issue has been whether it should be devoted entirely to agricultural products or to crafts. And those have been the real issues that people have come to us about. And I've gotten complaints that certain vendors are buying their produce in Georgia and they're coming here and they're selling it here.
That's the biggest complaint that we've had is people we've got vendors from Russell County who are over here with a spot when somebody who grows right here in Washington County can't get in.
But that really brings up to adjudication and who actually has control.
Right.
And that,
Well, I'm okay with if ASD wants whatever vendor they want in there, I'm okay with that. My problem with it is we either have a policy where we let every special interest group have some area or no special interest group have an area, because special interest groups are not, they don't sell things, they don't sell produce, they don't sell jewelry. We had some complaints for some folks one time the Tea Party wanted to set something up, and they were told no. And then another time, a lady wanted to set up to collect political signatures, and they were told no. So,
But that does not prohibit anybody from passing out literature. Anyone can go in there and pass any literature.
I understand that, but, you know, I'd like to see a policy where we either let a space for tables or no space at all. You know, the group that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but our operational agreement with the farmer's market had to do with their accepted vendors, correct? And the vendors that are their members, correct? So all these new rules that keep popping up, you know, the dogs that, you know, and I'm not saying I'm opposed or for anything, but I would just like to see us have one uniform set of policies that applies to everybody so that, you know, we're not catching the heat over that.
Well, I would like to see that too, but back to the dogs. I had one of the vendors this weekend went down, I talked to one of me, and I talked to one of the vendors, and they sell dog biscuits and bones and, you know, stuff. And they were very upset too. They go, you know, this people won't bring their dogs, and won't try on the little costumes, and, you know, and they were really, you know, a little aggravated about it. And I asked them why it came about. And I was told by that person that there was one letter written from a lawyer from an older lady who had been tripped down there. And they threatened litigation, and because of that, and here, the reason I'm bringing this up is, if that is true, then that should have come directly to us. Any litigation, any letter from a lawyer should have come right directly to town council, not ASD or anyone else. So is there a policy, a clear policy that they know, if they get a letter from, you know, if they get something could be legal process or something legal.
Well, it sounds like this is something we need to pull out both sets of rules, and we need to sit and go through and see what's consistent, what's inconsistent, and see if we can make it into a more consistent set of rules.
Or what
You
portion
know,
of the grounds?
I was contacted by a lawyer, not about somebody tripping, but about being concerned that they were going to get dog bit because dogs had been, two dogs getting together and growling at each other in close proximity to someone else. And he simply said to me to look into it, and I didn't direct that the signs be put up to prohibit dogs down there. And you know, I think there are pros and cons to having the dogs everywhere in town.
Well, you know,
but as long as they're properly restrained and under control, and they're not urinating on produce.
Well, you know, I hadn't heard urinating on produce at our farm. I had not heard them urinating on produce at our farmer's market, but I had heard about dogs urinating on other farmer's market. But you know, as we look at this though, what this is, well, and here's what it's all about. It's about personal responsibility, and when do we give our rights up, and we assign them to the government to say, hey, we would rather for you to adjudicate it than for us to be responsible for ourselves. And I think there's a big, I think that's a slippery slope to get on, to whether we can't take responsibility for ourselves, or somebody like Darnell saying, hey, listen, your dog's down here and it's, you know, it's unruly, and there's a process to go through to ban each dog or a dog or what dog is down there. So, you know, and so I'm not in favor, I guess, of giving up at every turn our rights because we don't want to take the personal responsibility of something.
Before we get on these slopes, why don't we just check with some other farmers markets in the area and see what they do? You know,
That's a great idea.
Not that hard.
I second that. No, we can't vote.
You know, our farmer's market is so old, if you think about it, originally they brought produce in with horses, I'm sure.
Oh, can I bring my horses then? I'll bring them over.
Well,
if they don't growl or bite, you're okay.
You know, when I first came on the council was all of these groups that wanted to make sure they got their piece of the farmer's market because, you know, the Tobacco Commission helped build it and there was all of this hoopla, and we wound up having to hire our own market manager because everybody was fussing over who got to do what. So I just think it's time for a policy. It's time for us to look at what we agreed to with the ASD and you know, then, since then, they have formed a farmers market association who has control over something, but I don't know what that is. And so, now you got two groups that are controlling the same days. And then you're talking about the yard, and where does that begin and end? And because all that does still belong to the government, that is public property.
Right.
And so we just need, I think, to look at all of the things. It has evolved, and it's popular enough now that the evolution would help us know what policies are there, what we think, you know, as Bob said, what's working for other farmers market, and we'll just put that on Deb's list of ordinances to look at.
But since you wanted to discuss this, since we're discussing this, then I think we should look, because you're talking about growling and possible biting someone, you got a letter from another attorney, is maybe that dogs should be banned on the streets, banned on the streets together. You know, it's all public property, it's, you know, if it goes back to that personal responsibility. So if we're gonna ban them at the farmer's market, should we ban them? Think about it. I mean, should we ban them on the streets all over town? Because someone could be tripped because their leash is out too long, or their lead's too long, or because there's another dog and they go side by side and they fight with each other. So where do we actually draw the line and stop? Where's the line in the sand that we actually don't adjudicate anymore?
Well, again, I think that if we start with looking at the policies that are in place, and we look at how much of we may have to designate as the town council a public green space that is ours for any groups or whatever. We may just need to look at all of that, I think, as a policy.
As we talk about this, remember you told me we had 30 minutes, so as we talk about this, one of the other things that's
Yeah, I'm sorry I said that.
I know. One of the things that is being done, like in Fairfax and the larger cities, is they have a cage or crate, so that people that come to a farmer's market and they have a dog with them, they put it in that crate, and it stays in the crate till the owner comes back. So the owner gets to go and shop, and they get to come back, and they get to get their dog and go on their way. So those are some of the, I can tell you that I think it's in Fairfax, Dave, I think it is, or Herndon. But anyway, one of the two, it's a tough thing. And I got somebody, I had tons of, I got about 100 hits on this, and I got about 200 comments, so.
Well, here's one about dog-friendly farmers markets in coastal Virginia, and it gives you a handy-dandy list of things to do before you take your dog into an area that's marked dog-friendly. One thing is to feed them, the next thing is to walk them, clean up after them, and if they're in a bad mood, leave them home. Those are a few things. They really should.
But that is for people, they got the wrong one.
Always keep them on a leash.
So we're in agreement that staff will look at all of this and come back to us at another work session. Is that correct?
Gather some data.
Okay. So Ms. Patterson, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss down here tonight?
Oh, yeah, I do. Actually, thank you. How'd you know? It's kind of come to my attention that I'd like to ask the council's consent. I'd like to change a little bit of how we have our packet with don't get on my, don't hurt me. Just a little change here about, so we won't miss anybody who's applied for boards and commissions. I looked at my packet and I went over it thoroughly. And I'd just like to recommend to restructure the way we get these, because I know that we pull some of the eligible citizens from the ongoing application matrix. But I noticed that, am I allowed to say who applied in this meeting? Is that okay? Ms. Bradley and Mr. Okay, and Mr. Link Elmore. Okay, so Leslie Bradley, Mr. Link Elmore, and then Mr. Scott Wilson. We got it, was it yesterday or today?
He had sent it April 1st, though,
Right.
and it just got overlooked.
Okay, that's okay. Well, I mean, it is what it was, but anyway, that being said, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Jett may still be wanting to be on the planning commission, so we have no idea I don't have a I'll tell you in a minute, I'm kind of,
Excel spreadsheet.
You do
well,
have it.
is that
Yeah.
on here?
The new ones are not on until the next month.
Right.
But you've got a matrix of
Yeah, that's what I
everybody.
was saying, the matrix, but I need like a application, there's the word I'm looking for. I need an application, and then I need Mr. Jett's name also, so every time we have, potential, folks that wanna come in onto a board or commission, we have all this in our packet, and we know, we don't miss anyone. That's kinda, I think the last one that we went, into closed session, I wasn't aware that, that person was even on the inventory of applications. I didn't see their application myself personally. That's where I was going with this, so.
Well, if I can give you just a little bit of history on this, before, we always included, we would send out an advertisement or a notice that we had a vacancy to fill. And we'd give them a time frame, and during that time frame, they would fill out an application and send it in from that particular board or committee. And we would put that into the packet. And then, it came down to where council requested, the former council members agreed to request just the matrix with the names on it as a reminder of who had submitted applications. But because that would be such a big,
Go ahead, I'm listening.
oh, it's all right. Wait.
I just see Miss Bradley and Link Elmore, and.
They were added to the matrix
okay.
that Cecile's talking
All
about.
right, so the HPBR, but I don't see the, Stephen Jett on there as a planning commission. I think he did come up.
He's right here.
He is.
He's on the matrix.
Anything in red has already been appointed
Yeah.
to a board also, so that you can keep up with that.
Oh, okay, I see planning. I can't see from my glasses. Planning and tree, okay, you're in here. My bad.
I wanna say something too. Part of the problem with a lot of the application process, not just with this, but when we do non-departmental requests, we specifically tell them who to send the application to. And you'd be surprised how many times it winds up in somebody else's email and doesn't get sent to the right person until a later date when it is discovered. I know many times I'll forward things to Chuck from non-departmental requests that come directly to me or come to Cecile. So sometimes it's just a matter of not being sent to the right person.
And I'm going to apologize to Ms. Roosevelt. I want to let her finish talking because I was just trying to show you that what she was talking about is in there.
Yeah.
Well, all I was gonna say is that, if we put every single application that's on that matrix in your council packet is gonna be so large, and it would be such a headache for us to have all that. I mean, we can make we can do a share file that will have those in it that you can look back on. I think that might be the way to do it, is to scan them, but it will not be included in your council packet every single
Don't
time.
do no sheriff files, I can't open them.
Let me tell you, let me give you another hint.
I think that'd be a good idea, because at least we'll have all the applications. Because how can you compare them if you don't have every one of them? And that's a great idea.
You do have them. You might not because you're new, and you're right about that. But you see that the date on here? You can go into your library, look for January, and it'll be in your council packet.
Yeah, but how, you mean like when he applied, or when a citizen?
When he applied, when any citizen applies, their information is, so it shows that they applied that date.
Okay, so you go back into the notes of the.
Yeah, and
of
so
the
it'll
meeting.
either be in January notes, or it'll be in February, let's say. Let's say they applied that date, and it was after the first of the month, so it'll be in the February packet. So you'll know whether just to look back in your library for January or February. So that's kinda how I've done it. but-
Or it could be lumped into one share file, and they'd all be there, and then we can have access to them and compare.
I
I think
that would
that's
be-
an easier way than trying to
Well, I'm gonna be
go
the first one
backwards.
to tell you guys that, and I actually hope Floyd and CJ and John are listening to this. I do not care for a share file, I'll be the first one to tell you, and I am not a fan of how the packet is coming out right now. But for the fact that I'm not sure we have a whole lot of other options, and the biggest issue, the volume of this packet, as you well know, it is huge, and for us to transmit this thing in a format for you all to be able to access it, we're getting to the point where share file may be our only option right now. Now, that doesn't mean I like it, I'll be first one to tell you, because I've had some really serious issues, you know, with opening it, finding things, the dependability of it. But, you know, they assure me that we can figure out a way to navigate this, so that's my hope. And with some training, I'm hoping they're gonna be able to get us on board, but I wanna go on right here and tell you, I personally do not like it.
And I'm glad Ms. Rosenbaum said that, because that was the other thing that we wanted to try to add to the, because we've already killed one of the things, so we only have 3 topics on the work session, and the share file training was something that Floyd had mentioned that he'd like to do at that meeting. Is that okay with everybody?
One of the things I wanna make sure of about that, Floyd, I know he's not in here, I don't think, but, Floyd has a new grandbaby, was born last week, and he is in Alaska. He's about as far away as you can get, and Floyd is leaving to go visit this new grandbaby, he's gonna be gone most of the month of May.
He's not old enough to have a grandbaby.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's got 4 children, so this is their first grandbaby, so he's over the moon, but they're going to Alaska. I wanna make sure he's gonna be here on the 15th.
Okay.
Because I think that would be good.
I'd like to, that's great, thank you, I think that's a good idea. One more thing, I just wanted to know, there was a follow-up letter with the history of the slave of.
Yes, ma'am, I actually sent it to you, I copied
Well,
all
I
the
got that,
council.
but I mean to Mr. Pillion and Israel and Quinn, were they notified and followed up with?
We asked Delegate McQuinn to contact them.
Okay, great, thank you, just wanted to make sure that was.
Right.
Anybody else?
I'll say one thing
Yes,
real
sir.
quick before you ask everybody else. I've got the calendar. I'm working at the fire station part-time. I'm driving the truck.
Okay.
I'm supposed to work on the 15th and 16th. Is there any way we could do this on Wednesday the 17th? If not, I'll have to find somebody else to drive that day.
I am going to be at a tobacco commission meeting the 17th and 18th. I will be happy to move it, let's say, to the 19th.
Your issue's going to be your traffic consultants, because he's already got them.
They're booked for the 15th, I mean, they might be able to change, but.
Yeah, they're in Richmond,
need to
so
know
they're
soon.
Well, I'll see if I can get somebody else. If not, this will be covered with anybody.
Or is there another date that you'd like to look at?
I just got a hold of the calendar. It just came out today. 15th and 16th.
What about the 11th? Okay, I have an
Do you
email.
want John to check with the consultants and see if they can do that?
Yeah, you better.
So John, will you
He
check?
won't know till tomorrow.
Floyd's gonna be gone.
What day is the 11th, Irma?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Well, don't worry about it.
It's right here.
John said he thinks he can take care of it. Just forget what I said.
You ask for so little, Bob, that I want, that I want to do, I want to do it.
We could actually have the meeting at the fire hall.
We actually could, that's no lie.
And if he gets a call.
If he gets a call, then we would do the meeting, until he gets back.
Mr. Craig, do you have anything else you want to talk about down here? Mr. Humphries?
No, thank God, I didn't want to talk about the dogs in here tonight.
My name's Wayne Cathy.
Wayne, would you like
That's
to
a funny
talk
last name,
about-
Wayne Cathy.
Wayne Cathy. Staff have anything to say? Okay, then you get a whole 5 minutes for a break.
I'm trying to find who sent me that 101 copies.
Well, everything I found in Northern Virginia does not allow